In this video, I'm going to show you how to add one of the types of calculated questions to a quiz in the Moodle quiz module. You'll have to be in the class and the module that contains the quiz to which you want to add this question. Once you find that quiz, click on it. And as the teacher, you will see this screen that asks you to attempt the quiz if there is already at least one question in the quiz. You will not be able to edit from here. What you'll have to do is go to your sidebar and under Settings find the Edit Quiz button and select that. When you do that, it takes you to your quiz editing page and the existing questions will be there. To add your additional question, click the Add a Question button. And because we want this to be a calculated question, we have three choices. Calculated, which is complex, it gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of possibilities, but it's hard to use and fairly cumbersome. Because of that, they've devised Calculated Simple, which leaves out a lot of the extra steps, and it's good enough for most practical purposes of calculated questions. A calculated multi-choice question is like a calculated question, only it calculates answers and then wrong answers for the students to select from. Those are a little bit harder to create, so I'm going to just show you the Calculated Simple, and if you want to experiment with calculated multiple choice and calculated questions, you can do that on your own. Calculated Simple is what I want, and then I'm going to click Next. Now I'm at my question editing page. The category is important. If I want this question to be available for other tests and quizzes, I probably want to leave the category as the default for my class. If I want it to be used only for this quiz and sort it that way, I will click the default to be for that quiz only. I need a question name. I'm going to name this 4. Usually they're just numbers. And then question text. In other words, what is it in fact that we're asking the students to do? All of the questions on this sample quiz that I'm doing here are ice cream related. So here's my question. Mary buys 3 ice cream cones at $, and now because this is a calculated question, I'm going to put in here a variable that Moodle will fill in a random number for. So I'm going to put in here P for price, and I'm putting it inside squiggly brackets, and by doing that, P is now a variable that Moodle will supply into a formula to calculate the question. You'll see how this works in a little bit. Because I put the $sign in front, the student will not see squiggly P. They will see $sign and then some actual number. And then I continue with my text. Each. What will be her total bill? So this is going to ask the student to essentially take whatever is in squiggly P and multiply it by 3. The default mark is there like it is for most questions. It's usually 1, so just leave it that way. There's a space for general feedback. And now here's our spot for our answer. Now here, for an answer, we don't just put a number like we would in a numerical question. We have to actually create the formula that we want to calculate the question's answer. So that's going to be 3 times the variable that is the price of each ice cream cone. And remember, that was squiggly bracket P. So the answer is going to be 3 times whatever's in squiggly bracket P. What's our grade? It's going to be 100%. Tolerance. How much leeway are you going to give the students for making a slight mistake or for rounding error? I've found for most practical purposes, if I give them a 5% error, anybody who's actually done the problem right won't get it wrong because of rounding error. The tolerance type is relative. In other words, that means it's going to be 5%. The 0.05 is going to be 5% of the correct answer. And then we can format how many decimal places or how many significant figures show up in the correct answer when the student sees the correct answer on the screen. For science teachers that are worried about significant figures, this doesn't appear to make any difference at all. And so you can just make sure that you have at least as many decimal places as you need or significant figures as you need, and maybe more just to be on the safe side, because it doesn't affect the answer. Chemistry teachers in particular, you can't grade for significant figures here. There's just no way that Moodle knows how to handle it, so you'll have to ignore that. Now, you can have feedback for this answer, and if you know that there's going to be a common mistake, or you anticipate a common mistake, you can click the blanks for one more choices button, and then it'll give you an opportunity to write a formula for a common error, and then give feedback and or partial credit on that mistaken answer. There's a box here for unit handling. Most of the time, I would suggest that you only grade the numerical value and not units. If you have this selected, which is the default, units are not used, only the numerical value is graded, it'll ignore any units that the student puts in there, like $ in this case, and only look at the numbers. Using units requires that the student get the unit exactly right and not make any mistakes, and you have to specify what the unit is going to be. It turns out to be a sort of a nightmare for administering the quiz, and so I don't recommend it. You have settings for multiple tries. Each time a student takes the quiz, if they're allowed multiple takes, there could be a penalty assigned for getting it wrong the first time. I usually do not do that, but it's certainly up to you. There's a spot for hints. I'm not sure what Moodle actually does with the hints. I've never seen them show up on a quiz, so I usually leave that box alone. Now, here's something that you have to do when you're doing a calculated question. P inside squiggly brackets was our variable for the price of an ice cream cone. Moodle doesn't really know what you want that to be, and so there's this box for find the wildcards present in the correct answer formulas. You have to have wildcards in a calculated question, and you have to specify the range that Moodle is going to look for a random value in. So I'm going to click that button, and I come back to the edit page at the top again. As I scroll down, when I get to find the wildcards, now I find my wildcard that I've used, and there can be more than one in a formula, and it's specified, P in squiggly brackets, and it wants to know the range of values. Well, let's say an ice cream cone ranges in price in our randomizer here from $1.50 up to $2.75. And we have to specify how many decimal places the kid is going to see when they read that quiz question. And for dollars and cents, obviously you'd want that to be 2. And then we have to generate wildcard values. I usually generate 10 wildcard values. That gives us an opportunity for like 1 in 10 kids are going to see the exact same question, and that cuts down on the cheating quite a bit. And then how many wildcard values do you want to display? This probably doesn't matter at all. I usually leave that at 1, and then you have to click the Generate button before you move on. So you click Generate. Moodle generates those wildcard values and goes back again to the top of the edit page. Going down to the bottom, we now see displayed one selected wildcard, $2.39, and the calculation done. It tells us what the correct answer is, and it tells you what the range is with our 5% error into which a student's answer is going to have to fit for them to get full credit. Once that appears, and there doesn't appear to be any question or error with the formula itself, I click Save Changes. Once I've saved my changes, my calculated simple question shows up here. To see what it looks like, I click the Preview button, which is just a little magnifying glass. And this is what the student's going to see. Remember when we wrote the question, after the $ was squiggly P squiggly, but now it doesn't say that. The student clearly is reading an actual number there, $2.54. That was one of the 10 random values for P that Moodle chose and put into that question. What will be your total bill? Well, if we calculate this offline, we see that it should be $7.62. If we click the Fill in Correct Responses button, we find that it is, in fact, $7.62. And so we know that Moodle is working correctly, so we can close the preview. If it wasn't doing what you wanted, then you would click the Edit button, which is the hand with the pencil in it. It takes you back to the editing screen, and then you can change either something in the text or something in the formula or something in the tolerance. Whatever you need it to do, you can change anything on here and make it better. Now, it gives you the option of making a copy. I have not had good luck with making copies to duplicate and slightly modify calculated simple questions. It doesn't seem to work out very well. And so I would recommend for a calculated simple question, just do the question over again. If there was a complicated text, just cut and paste it into the new question and save yourself some grief. So now you see how to make a calculated question using the Simple Calculate feature of Moodle Quiz Module.